Well, Chet, we teased last week that we would be naming our 5 most despised Philly athletes, and now is the time to do that. So for our viewers that are watching live, feel free to throw your comments up. We want to see them. And Chet, to make it a little more interesting, what we'll do is we'll go 5-1. We'll actually have to number these. Go 5-1. You go, I'll go. You go, I'll go, and we'll get down to number 1.
I want to say, first of all, there are a bunch of guys Philly sports fans disliked simply because they didn't work out the way they or the team had hoped. Many of them Eagles, such as Danny Watkins, Jerome McDougal, John Harris, Marcus Smith, even Sam Bradford, and Nnamdi Asomugha.
I forgot about Nnamdi.
Yeah.
Oh,
he spent 2 years
there. He
here.
didn't make my list.
He might be on somebody's list. Phillies, Lance Parrish. That didn't work out so well. Freddie Garcia, the pitcher. What a bust he was. Adam Eaton. Eaton was dreadful in 2008, but yet he still showed up in 2009 to get his World Series ring and got roundly booed for that. That was kind of cool, actually. I didn't put the Sixers #1 draft pick Markelle Fultz on my list, but I very well could have. Fans ultimately didn't love Sean Bradley, but he's not in my top 5 either, nor is Andre Iguodala, who became another whipping boy for the fans. By the way, former Eagle Mike Mamula was disliked by a lot of fans, but he's not on my list. I mean, it's not his fault that the Eagles overdrafted him at number 7 overall in 1995. Almost making my list, but I couldn't squeeze him in, DeMarco Murray, because he sucked as an Eagle and he was a former Cowboy. So
he almost made my list too.
Yeah, so some of the guys I thought of, my buddy PJ mentioned Scott Roland. He's another guy who fans kind of soured on because simply he wanted out of Philly and wasn't the nicest guy, it seemed. So are we ready?
It wasn't Andre Iguodala's fault that we traded him and he won about a half a dozen rings either.
Yeah, he became a pretty important player, ultimately, winning a couple titles with Golden State.
Yes, he did. All right. Well, now we cleared a lot off the board there. And I forgot about Nnamdi. I despised him.
So none of those guys were on your list, top 5, right?
No.
Wow.
No. And I thought about a handful of them, but no.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Throw your number 5 up there.
All right. My number 5 most despised Philadelphia athlete got to be Flyers goalie Ilya Brisgolov. He was a high-priced free agent acquisition, and his numbers as a Flyer actually weren't bad in his 2 seasons here. 52, 33, and 10, and a goals against average around 2.6. Yeah, we'd take that, but he was just such a weird dude who a lot of times said things that ticked people off, and a guy that most fans never really took to. So number 5 for me, Ilya Brisgolov.
All right. Number 5 for me is my list is made of thieves, pretty much made of thieves.
Okay.
People that came here and just stole money from Philadelphia. And Danny Tarnival. You remember Danny Tarnival, Chet?
I do. I thought about him, but he got hurt in his first game? He had like 2 at-bats.
Well, we signed him. Well, he played in 3 games. He had 7 at-bats. He had 0 hits. We signed him for $2 million in 1997, which was a lot of money back in 1997. 3 games, 7 at-bats, 0 hits, and then he didn't want to play anymore. That was it. End of the career. We wasted $2 million. Could have thrown it in the Delaware River.
Yeah, I did think about him. Didn't put him on my list, but Danny Tarnival. Okay, I get it. Number 4. Here we go. This is going to be a controversial one because I loved this guy as a player. But after one great season with the Eagles, in which he came back from a bad injury to play in the Super Bowl, lost to the Patriots, played very well, as a matter of fact, Terrell Owens inked a 7-year deal with the Eagles, then wanted to renegotiate his contract. And in the process, feuding with the team, he ended up screwing up the entire Eagles 2005 season. So I'm sorry, T.O., but you're number 4 on my list.
All right. Number 4 on my list is that Andrew Bynum. What a bum. And I don't say that about many. This guy was number 1 on my list for a long time, and I didn't think anybody was ever going to get to move him off the list. The biggest thief, Chet, to ever set foot in the city of Philadelphia. He was part of a 4-way trade, matter of fact, that involved Andre Iguodala.
Yep.
But he never played a minute for the Sixers at a salary of $16.9 million.
As it turns out, Bill, number 3 on my list is Andrew Bynum. Yeah, to refresh your memory, in the summer of 2012, Sixers traded for him. He was a pretty good player at the time when healthy, but they did, as you said, give up Andre Iguodala. I think he went to the Nuggets, and a young big guy named Nick Vucevic, who is still in the league today and was pretty darn good for a lot of years. And I didn't want to see him go. He left. We got Bynum, and as you said, never played. He never got himself healthy enough to play for the Sixers, and he actually re-injured his knee while bowling. Plus, he had the weird hair going on some of the time. Andrew Bynum, number 3 on my list, Bill.
That's where he belongs. All right, number 3 on my list. You'll be surprised at this one, Chet. How about Chip Kelly?
Well, see, I didn't consider coaches, or he would have certainly been there.
He is on my list. He made things so bad that even Jeffrey Lurie could see him.
Oh, yeah.
They finally decided to cut bait with that bum. He tried to dismantle the team and tried to dismantle the inside of the organization as well with his attitude and pompous behind. He was 26-21 using Andy Reid's guys, but he was a clown going in the wrong direction, taking that organization in the wrong direction. Fortunately, Lurie cut him loose.
Yeah. If I were to include coaches or owners for that matter, Chip Kelly would be on the list, and so would Norman Brayman. But anyway, Chip Kelly.
Hey, let me jump in right quick because Joe House said good pick with Kelly, but Robbie put one in there. Maybe I don't want to steal your thunder, but Robbie put one in there.
Yeah.
Ryan Sandberg. I've forgotten about Ryan Sandberg.
Oh, man, what a bad managerial choice that turned out to be. I mean, great player, certainly Hall of Fame player, but as a manager, he stunk. He had the personality of a chair. He was just god-awful as Phillies manager. So, yeah, Ryan Sandberg, a good one. All right, number 2 on my list, like Andrew Bynum, a guy who never got to play a game for the Philadelphia team that wanted him. In this case, the Phillies. They drafted J.D. Drew, 2nd overall in the 1998 MLB draft, even though he said he wouldn't play for them unless they gave him like $10 million, and they weren't prepared to offer him more than $3 million. I think they offered him like $2.6 million or something. Maybe the Phillies were dumb for doing that, but J.D. Drew, he's number 2 on my list.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, number 2 on my list, Jed, is, and I'm not saying his name, number 25 makes the 2nd spot on my list. That probably surprises you that he's not first. He's 2nd, but he's a current event, Number 25 of your program and no name to come out of this mouth. Everything you don't want on your team. I said many times he was a nightly triple-double machine waiting to happen. Thought he was going to be really something. And then whatever happened for him to go off the rails, he became uncoachable, became an awful teammate. God, good riddance, 25.
Yeah, he's actually number 1 on my list. I thought he'd be number 1 on everybody's despised list. And, we've talked enough about him over the last several months to know why he's so despised. So Ben Simmons is number 1, and he's one of the few guys ever that I hope fails in his next spot. I hope he's okay, mentally, but I hope he just fails on the court and is a total bust for the Nets. So get out of here, Ben.
Yeah. Good riddance. Well, that brings me to my number 1. And
I'm curious.
I thought that this would surprise you, but you surprised me. My number 1 is Terrell Owens.
Huh.
Terrell Owens, Hall of Famer, he single-handedly destroyed a team by dividing the locker room, Chet.
Yep.
Even Andy Reid couldn't save that locker room. And he is the ultimate player's coach. I don't know if Owens was at fault. I don't know if McNabb was at fault. All I know is it split the locker room. And when Owens started his charade, in his driveway and everything else he could to destroy that franchise, again, another guy who is everything you don't want on your team. We know he can play. He's a Hall of Famer, but he was just a bad teammate. And the reason that he was number 1 over number 25, at least in number 25's case, everybody was over on one side. He was on the other. In the case of Owens, it was split down the middle, and it destroyed the team. And that's why he gets the nod for me as my number 1 guy.